Welcome to the Simply Well podcast. I'm your host, City Jane, and we're just doing our best over here to get you guys episodes, an episode a week, which coincidentally, I might be, toning it back a little bit for the summer months. I don't know. We've talked about this before. I don't know what happens as far as episodes and seasons and all those things, but we're doing our best over here. We are integrating from Medicina, and that's what this episode is going to be about. Actually, I wanted to do a whole download about what I learned in the medicine this weekend, and actually, yesterday, was that yesterday? Everything's blending together. Today is Friday. I'm recording this Friday, so it's coming out a little bit later. Let's say Wednesday night, I actually ended up having a private ceremony that I've actually been wanting to do for a while. And it just happened that I had the space. And I was already on dieta and I was already, sitting that weekend before. And so it just felt right to sit again. So we're going to get into it this episode, and a lot of the epiphanies that I had might seem like, oh, duh, Sadie, of course, but I hope that maybe some of you feel inspired by what I'm going to share today, because man, I just continually get amazed with what's illuminated for me in the medicine and how powerful it is to help me integrate back into my life. So this last Medicina was our fourth Medicina. We have now served over 100 people in the medicine space in that container. And I just feel so grateful. It's so interesting, the shadows that illuminate within me when I go there, because, I can't hold anyone's hand. Like, I purposely created Medicina to orchestrate an incredible experience for people to come and sit with the magic of the medicine in a way that was the most supportive, right? So giving them tools, we're clearing things with breath work, we're doing Akashic dream time sound journeys, we're integrating, we have nourishing food, they have their own cabin, we have this whole private ranch to ourselves. And so with all that, still, it's so funny because it has to be their own journey. It has to be their own journey. And I find that as I grow older and as I continue to hold more space, I've been, running retreats for over 10 years now, and I still find myself having shadows of allowing myself to let them have their own journey. So when we sit with the medicine, we actually all partake of the medicine at least a little bit. For me, I'm obviously not going deep in a journey, but I partake a little bit just to get into that frequency as a space holder and as a facilitator and helping them navigate. Now, obviously, I'm not serving the medicine. We have ethical guides through ethical lineages doing that. But what's really interesting is, my intention's always about really anchoring in this idea of service and tuning into allowing myself to tune into what is needed in the space. And like we've talked about before, I think I've talked about this on the podcast. It's this idea that life is the ceremony. Life is the real ceremony. And what's really cool about sitting in ceremony spaces with medicine is it helps us come back to that concept. When I first sat with grandmother ayahuasca, I had no idea the impact of the ceremony, how that piece alone would impact my life. It's interesting because I'm almost on my 4-year anniversary of sitting. June 20th, 2020 was my very first time that I sat. And wow, I remember thinking, whoa, I had no idea the preparation that went into this. I just thought I was like going to go sit and it would heal me. Please fix me. And it did in a way. And also, a lot of the ceremony was the preparation. And I just remember feeling so held because of the sacredness of the ritual piece of it. Now, I know that some people feel pretty anti about that because most people, or some people, at least I've seen some of my clients that have left the organized religious space, any kind of ritual feels like super unnecessary, or it feels like it cultish, or it feels like it's taking away from who you are. And unfortunately, like one of my biggest jobs, I guess I would say, on this earth is to help people get that back into their life, specifically people that have religious or spiritual trauma. And I truly believe that it's because with that trauma, their crown chakra gets cut off. They get cut off of any kind of connection with any kind of divine source, with any kind of higher self, with any kind of God or goddess. And with that comes the release or the letting go or the bitterness or the pushback of rituals. And, you know, a ritual is literally just an intentional act. That's really what it is. And so I'm so grateful for many reasons that I found grandmother and before any plant medicine, because I feel like I was able to bring back rituals into my life. And before finding that spiritual community, there were rituals in terms of like getting on my yoga mat and flowing, or, you know, different rituals related to different things, but not in my daily life because my rituals were directly tied to a religion. So I don't even think it's the religion's fault. I think it's just that the religion, any religion, knows that through devotion of a ritual comes a connection to something, right? But some people equate the ritual with the religion always. And so they can disconnect themselves from rituals in general, when really rituals are our God-given right. They're something that we're born with. I mean, anything is a ritual. Anything, and when I say ritual, I even mean a rhythm, right? Something consistency. Breathing is a ritual, and that's a rhythm, right? Waking up and going to sleep is a ritual. Your heartbeat is its own ritual. So I just really love, and I wanted to touch on that concept of what rituals are we bringing into our lives? Where are we able to slow down and realize that everything, washing the dishes is a ritual? And how do you actually make that experience into a ritual? Because we get to choose that. And it has to do with romanticizing our lives. And romanticizing our lives is nothing more than just setting intention into our day. What is it that we can do intentionally rather than being a zombie? So when I started on my own spiritual path, or when I was disconnecting myself from outside sources as far as my spirituality, I found that the mundane life started cycling. And actually, there was a space between disconnecting from outside source spirituality or religion and coming into my spirituality. There was a big space, like a handful of years, when I was kind of in between these spaces. And I feel like because of the in between and getting into motherhood, I lost a lot of my ability to really integrate intentional rituals. And I think a lot of it was because I felt like my life wasn't mine, right? We have babies. Our rituals are theirs. At least that's what I thought. And I don't think I realized that I could have a ritual with everything I did, with the tea that I pour, with my morning routine, with my meditation practice, with with how I eat my food, with what I do after I eat my food, like everything. Even if we have young babies, even if we're on their schedule, right? Everything can be a really beautiful ritual. And I think, at least for me, I remember being taught that any ritual outside of a religion is like worshiping a false god. And so for me, this is a whole tangent on rituals I was not expecting to have, but this just is wanting to come out. So if you're with me, hello, we're here now. But for me, it's been so beautiful to remember that I get to choose, that I get to choose the intentions of the world, that of my world, that I get to choose what I want to do instead of just going through the routines of the day. Of course, we have to do the routines. Of course, we still have to do laundry. Of course, we still have to do dishes. But a big piece of integrating the magic of Medicina or any kind of medicine that we do, it's that those intentional sits that we take time out of our lives for, they can be integrated by just being mindful about the intentions that we bring into our home every single day. So this ceremony that we go sit in, the ceremony of life, the preparation for it, I feel like our lives would be so much more full, and we would be living so much more presently instead of worrying about the past, being depressed about the past and anxious about the future. Being so intentional, that's what another reason why I love ceremony is there's no other, I mean, of course your mind wanders, but for the most part, it's much more difficult to not live in the present because you're being so intentional, because everything is so beautifully placed in its space. So it's always nice for me to come back to ceremony and just have that refresher and have that reminder of oh, I get to be the medicine. I get to be the walking ceremony. I get to bring my medicine to everything I touch, to when I do my daughter's hair, to when I'm vacuuming my family room. And it's just such a beautiful reminder. So I feel like I'm integrating that. And I just feel like, I mean, every single thing, I'm looking at my desk right now, and there's all of my trinkets that I had taken, right, for my altar space and for Medicina. And I get to take the time today and choose to clean everything up, clear it all up, and reset my altar. And I just feel so grateful that I have moments where, I mean, every 6 months, I don't sit with medicine any other time other than Medicina usually, just because I'm not called to it. There's so many other ways and modalities and things that I'm doing, but it's so nice to have that refresh. So, hello, I feel renewed. I feel refreshed. I'm definitely still integrating the medicine, and I feel so grateful that I can integrate that ceremony space. But for me, I'm going to talk about my intentions today and kind of how they came to fruition. And each Medicina is so interesting. Every retreat that I host somehow always expands and gets better and better and better. And really, that's always my prayer. Always my prayer is um, to become better, to improve. And each retreat I hold is always perfect for what it was. Always. It's always exactly the medicine that everyone needs. And I always, try to make sure I'm holding the prayer of always getting better. So it was really fun. We had about 39 people there, including staff, and the chefs that we had this time were previous Medicina participants. And so they understood, the energy. They understood how important the food was. They understood how important it was to really integrate the food piece. And that was really, really special. I felt like this one was really special too, because all of the helpers that we had, for the most part, were all able to come with their partners. And previously we wanted that to happen, but there were like babysitting issues or they couldn't come. So it felt like just all of my favorite people, for the most part, were there as far as facilitators, all my favorite facilitators. And it was really special to have that. And it was just it just goes deeper each time, which really requires me to go deeper myself as far as holding the prayer for the whole retreat and letting go and letting people have their own experiences. So my intentions for my sits this last weekend were all about just being of service and continuing to have a clear channel. I think as entrepreneurs, at least for me in my experience, and I'm not sure I know yet how to move through this. And I'm sure once I learn, I'm going to share all the details, guys, because we don't gatekeep here. You know this. But one thing that's been really interesting that comes forward a lot is trusting that the abundance will continue to flow, trusting that the ideas will continue to flow, trusting that from 5 years from now, I'll continue to have a growing, thriving, beautiful community and business, right? And I don't know why that came out so apparent to me at Medicina, but it was just something that was really alive in me. And so my intention was to continue to have a clear channel, because if I can continue to have a clear channel, meaning like if I can continue to be grounded, trust Mother Earth, and trust my connection to God, trust that open channel, then I know that I'll continue to have inspiration to then bring out more different medicine to my community, and medicine being courses and coaching and different retreats and all these things. And so it's just the matter of that trust. And the first ceremony, the first night, being an open channel was really beautiful because I was able to really tune into what the space needed and trust that and trust myself. And I played a couple new songs on the guitar. I strummed for the first time in ceremony because the guitar, I like guitar picked the last time. And then I went into guitar. So I'm learning more about that and really getting to know the guitar, which I'm so grateful for. Actually, in my Rose Dieta, I was able to channel a song. And I don't know, maybe I can like play it today. I'll play the Rosa song for you. I don't know if I can record it on here. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe it'll come through. But the second night was really interesting. So the first night, so there's always this space. So I'm getting to my next intention, but I want to really kind of open up and be vulnerable here about this interesting space that happens on retreats or anytime you're in a ceremony. And it's that like, it's like the second gate, right? So the first is the preparation. That's the first part of ceremony. And then the second part is like being in it and letting go. I think that's the second part. It's the second or the third part. And there's always this space in all of my retreats, at least so far, at least the transformational retreats. Now, if there's a business retreat, it wouldn't necessarily be this way, but there's always this space where I'm holding this energy that people are really uncomfortable because they're in between the breakthrough and they're in between this, like, this is annoying, I don't want to do this. And a lot of my retreats have to do with transformation. And so there's always that like kind of sticky space where people are just kind of like feeling it because it takes a second. People come in, whether they know it or not, we all show up with masks and we're like, oh yeah, I'm ready. And then they think that they're ready or we don't realize the masks that want to be removed. And so once we hit that wall of like, oh, this is resistance. Oh, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling nervousness. I'm feeling like I don't want to go there. It's the matter of the trusting. It's a matter of, I know that you can go there. It's showing up for a reason. Let's move through this, but it takes time. So some things want to be removed immediately and some things it takes 24 hours. Sometimes it takes between ceremonies, right? The first ceremony and the second. And in between the ceremonies, there's so much mind chatter. There's so much like, I don't want to sit again. I don't know why I'm doing this. It wasn't what I was expecting. Like there's just doubts. And of course, this is maybe like 2% of the people. But I find that whether it's at Medicina or whether it's in my containers, whether it's in Sacred Rebels for a whole year, there's a holding that needs to happen, especially as space holders. And maybe this podcast is for us space holders, or for anybody who is holding space for anybody, whether it's a mother or a business owner or, you know, a facilitator in any kind of attitude. But there's this space that we have to hold, and we have to remember that it's not about us. It's never about us. But it's really interesting because I've really been initiated into the depths of holding deep spaces, especially in the terms of retreats and these year-long containers, because there's things that are that come up, that show up, that people get witnessed in, that people are annoyed, people are frustrated, they have rage, they're not experiencing what they wanted to do, or maybe they're going deeper than they realized they were going, or there's just resistance. And for the first time probably ever, I really felt the resistance. And there was a moment when I was getting ready for the second ceremony, and I felt the heaviness. And instead of staying in a place of hope, instead of staying in the place of like open space holder, I fell into victimhood. And this happens all the time. I don't care that I've helped hundreds of people, thousands of people in my containers this is a consistent remembering, a consistent practice. And so I actually feel really grateful that I can share with this with you guys today, because I learned so much in that. You learn so much in the discomfort of falling again. You learn so much in the discomfort of getting back up again. So I fell into this victim space where I was like annoyed. I was like, how am I going to continue to do Medicina? How am I going to continue to hold on to this? Because what happened is I fell into victimhood because I made it about me. I made it about them not liking me, them not liking their experience. I wanted to hold their hands. I wanted to fix their experience. I wanted them to have this like huge, epiphanal, incredible, like every single minute, like, oh, this is amazing. Oh, but if that was the case, would change actually occur? And can we, as facilitators, hold our center so strongly to hold them in the discomfort? It's a huge piece of having to do what we do. Because if we're just like holding hands and singing rainbows and butterflies, that's great. That's great. But it's also, in my opinion, spiritual bypassing. And we're not getting to the core of why we came here in the first place. Now, of course, not everyone comes to Medicina to just like heal everything. Some people come to just sit, have a refresher, refresh their lives, reset some stuff, celebrate and recalibrate. And some experiences aren't uncomfortable. That's why, I love to work with medicines, because they're so deeply intelligent and they tune into exactly what we need. But whether you have medicine or not, there's always going to be, if you're a facilitator, a space that you have to hold these beautiful people in. And it requires us to deeply remember that has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with us. But of course, it's been a while since I've been in this space, but I made it about me. I did. I pouted. I took a moment. I cried. I was like, how do I hold this? How am I going to hold this? How am I going to continue this? It's a lot to feel like people aren't having a good experience, even though I trust it and I understand it. And it's all part of the process, especially at Medicina. And like, remember, I'm literally talking about maybe 2 people, right, out of 40. So I go back to ceremony and I'm like, I need to clear this. I need to clear this. So, because this is also, I really feel like this is a lot of my dharma, to hold this space and to hold these people and to help them move through that. And especially as a projector, it's not even it's really not about me. Like, my aura is all about the other. And so it's because I'm so open, especially in my human design, the mindfulness that I need to have and care and create between me and the other is so important. And that includes boundaries too. So here I am. And my intention the second ceremony was strength and courage, and obviously to be of service. So I come into ceremony and I have this excruciating headache. And I'm like, gosh, so annoying. Why do I have this headache? Because you can't really take medicine before. And I sit with the medicine and I tune in and I clear my thoughts. And I still have this headache. And then I feel the need to like clear the space. So I'm doing a little clearing and my headache starts to go away. And then I serve actually hape at one point in the ceremony. And I start serving and my headache goes completely away. And then all of a sudden I get super, super energized. And I sit back at one point just to take like a breath, maybe a drink of water. And I laugh to myself because the cure to getting out of my victimhood, the cure to getting out of my headache, the cure to getting strength and courage was through service, of course. And it helped me remind myself that service and what we do, especially as space holders, it's not always easy and it's not supposed to be, because we're continuing to deepen ourselves as well. And it helped me remember that it's not about me. It's never about me. It's never about you. And even if you're not a space holder and you're listening to this, I pray that if you're feeling sad, upset, overwhelmed, and you're ready to move it, right? First, we have to be able to honor it and sit with it. That's why I'm actually so grateful. I'm so grateful that I felt it, because not often do I allow myself to really sit in it. There's times when I feel it if somebody like comments in a Telegram group or in a container where 1 month particularly, or one video or one exercise was particularly difficult for them. I get to hold them in that and understand that I see them in that. I see them doing the hard work. And so when I feel that, oftentimes I'll just brush it away. But it was really powerful for me to take the time to really feel it, really feel what that felt like in my body, like almost like the sorrow and the grief of me not being able to literally take control of these people's stories. It's not my story. I can't, right? And it was so cool to then see it completely shift through service, of course. And of course, if you're wondering, at the end of second ceremony and at the end of all of Medicina, when we said goodbye and when we sang our longtime song Sun and gave each other hugs, everyone left in perfect harmony with themselves as far as clarifying and clearly getting what they had intended to get. And it's just, if it's not clear to them, it's not done yet. And that is so true again and again, not only for ceremony in Medicina, but for the ceremony of life. And I really believe that we are learning how to sit in that like mushy, gooey state, the gooey state of the metamorphosis, right, of the butterfly. And you have to really get to the goo piece to transform completely into the butterfly. When a caterpillar goes into its cocoon, it changes its DNA completely, right? And then but it has to get to that really malleable, gooey, like depths of where are they going? Who are they? What are they even doing? What are we even doing, right? It's that piece of letting go that they can translate into a creation of who they are. And wow, I just feel so grateful to once again have a super successful, couldn't have gone better, incredible Medicina. And I'm just obsessed. Our next Medicina is October 10th through the 14th. If you're feeling called to sit, you can just DM the word Medicina to my Instagram story, and it will the landing page will show up for you, and you can apply to come, and we'll look over your application and hope to see you there. It's just so fun to see who the medicine calls. It really is. People from Philadelphia to California to Costa Rica. I mean, it's just so many different beautiful people that come into the space from Canada. And we just feel so grateful that we're continuing to grow our Medicina family. So in terms of sitting and really learning and really deepening my practice, it's been a minute. It's been a minute since I've done that. And I have felt called to do a private sit for a really long time. Now, a private sit is just me and the facilitators. And I've done this in different medicines, but this one, man, I felt like it was time. I was already on dieta. I was kind of already in the frequency with Medicina. I had an empty night and I was like, let's just do it right after Medicina. And so just a few days ago, I took time to sit, and man, I went so deep. And there's a few things I want to share about that experience that I think are really, really important in the spiritual space that I find so interesting that I'm really starting to crystallize this year, the year of the dragon. For me, this year is all about crystallizing things. And when I say crystallize, I mean like actualizing, like all of the seeds I have planted, most of the seeds, some of the seeds I have planted as far as my business, my life, my grounding, my coming home to myself, my relationship with my husband and my kids, they're blooming. Like it's not just blooming, but those trees are bearing fruit, and I'm like pulling the fruit off the tree and biting that juicy apple. So with that being said, I've been noticing a theme this year specifically, and it really came online with Bufo this last January. And before that, I've been in this like really interesting, beautiful state of deepening my spiritual practice. And within the deepening my spiritual practice, I talked about this on the human design episode. I kind of used being a projector as an excuse. I used deepening my spiritual practice as an excuse. I used, and I don't even want to say it was an excuse because it was just a time and a season. I used building sacred rebels as an excuse, but I lost a little bit of my deeper connection to my physical body. And through yoga and somatics and breath work, I was able to really hold on to it still, but I stopped with the lifting weights for a while. And it's so funny that it's just like that one thing, but I will say it's also fueling my body. I wasn't fueling my body the way that I could have. Definitely. And so the reset with Bufo was really interesting because since then I've been able to just deepen my devotion to self. Like all of a sudden I'm able again to wake up at 5:30 to go to the gym. And I'm like, now is the time. I like really need to start with lifting weights again. I mean, I didn't get rid of it completely, but I was not doing it consistently. I was just not. For whatever reason, right? I think you ebb and flow through things, and I'm just in such a deeper spiritual space that I've ever been. And because of that, it's just the pendulum. It's the pendulum between heaven and earth, heaven at 3D and 5D, right? I talk about this a lot. Or even like the lower three chakras and the upper three chakras. Because the lower three, our root, our sacral, and our solar plexus, they have everything to do with safety, money, abundance, creativity, sensuality, identity. And they also link us to our ancestors, and they link us to the earth, and they link us to this experience, our human meat suit, like our cosmic meat suit in here. And then, of course, our upper three chakras really connect us to our intuition. They connect us to our spiritual space. They connect us to the divine. And marrying the two is absolutely possible. It just is interesting that I'll say that I don't really see it often, or at least I didn't see it in myself. Like there was just this back and forth. So this year is really the marrying of heaven and earth. And I really feel like that reset for me in Bufo. So since then, I've been working out, really fueling my body. I started really doubling down on my protein, which I hadn't done before. I was not fueling my body properly, or at least eating enough at all. So as I started this, and then now I'm going into that sit, right? My intention was really deep. It was really deep. It was to release all previous doubts that I had around really all of the identities of my lower three chakras. So like any doubts around my safety with abundance, the clarity of that coming through and that really anchoring me in and me trusting that that's going to continue, right? And then any doubts that I had related to my sexuality, my sensuality, and any doubts that I had related to my identity and who I was. And really, I feel in so much more of a grounded place than I ever have. That's another thing about the crystallization of this year is it's so beautiful to see how everything before this moment I have set myself up with all of those experiences to prepare myself for the deepening of grounding in now. So that was a piece of it. And then I specifically said to recalibrate myself from the tips of my toes to the top of my head, a deep recalibration to really stand as the goddess as I am, really stand as the goddess as I am. And previous to this, I don't know when it happened, but I think it really, if I reflect back, I think it really started when I first sat with grandmother. I started kind of gaining weight, nothing unhealthy, nothing that I'm really judging myself on, just that I'm just heavier now, and that's okay. But I think it was, well, now I know it was almost like a protection for me. and a safety for me, and it helped me feel more grounded. And also, it helped protect my body from being misunderstood in the sexual space, being misunderstood as like the sensual goddess that I wanted to embody. And so, as I'm like really uncovering this, my intention became more and more clear for this one on one sit. And I knew I had no idea what to expect. Nobody had really told me, like, and not even the facilitators. I was just like, I want to do this. And they were like, okay. And I'm glad that they did, because if I had known how deep I would have gone, I don't know if I would have gone there. Like, it was so, so, so beautiful and deep. Um, and I knew my intention needed to be really strong and beautiful for me to really, I just wanted it to be so worth it. So, yeah, I just wanted to embody the goddess and then really embody myself in all of my chakras, like really be in my body for my family, for my partner, for my kids, for my community, so that I can just continue to understand what it is to be human and really understand what it is in the sense that I'm marrying heaven and earth, like complete devotion to being on this earth while also connecting spiritually. And I really know that that's possible, right? So, I go into the medicine, and I go really, really, really deep. I take a really, really, drink a really big cup. And it was really, really intense. It was really intense. And I purged some really deep stuff. And it was really interesting because um, while I was purging and while I was moving, and it was what I loved about the private sit, and really you can do this in any sit. I just don't usually, because I'm in of service. So I'm not usually sitting just to sit at this point. But I do feel like, man, it's so nice to have a refresh, to have something that you can just go to just help you recalibrate, help you clear out. It's no different than going to a yoga class every week, right? It's just maybe a little bit deeper, obviously, but I find it so interesting that there's so much judgment around sitting with plant medicine, because it's no different than a detox. It's no different than anything else you would do to help benefit your body. Now, of course, you have to be mindful. This is a tangent, sorry, but of course, you have to be mindful about, um, you know, moderation and balance. Like, how often are we going there to to victimize? Are we going there to strengthen? Like, what are we doing to integrate? So there's all those facets, but I'm just so grateful this medicine has come into my life, because um, within the healing and the ceremony, so much healing is done, like generations, right? And then what's cool is grandmother is one of the most interesting, intricate teachers on sovereignty, because she takes you to these edges to help clear things out from you. And then she's like, okay, now it's up to you. Now, what are you going to do every day of your life? So I'm getting to that point. It's really important for me to bring that up, because I really locked that in today, or that ceremony. So um, I won't share too much about my experience, other than when I decided to release and I really, really needed to purge. And I was so grateful to have this remembrance of the power of purging in the way through throwing up, through getting well that way. Because even as I deepen my practice with medicine, I'm consistently sharing that you can move the energy in so many different ways. But sometimes the medicine just wants to get well that way. And we get so weirded out about getting quote unquote sick, or getting a fever, or getting chills, and I think that we're over vigilant and scared of this, specifically the last 4 years, for obvious reasons. But what we don't realize, it's literally our body's way of detoxing. It's literally, we have been given these tools just automatically, and in this technology of our bodies, to help rid ourselves of things, to help rid ourselves of energy and rid ourselves of negativity or trauma or something that doesn't serve us anymore. And it was such a humbling, beautiful lesson for me last night, because I was able to really, or the night before, because I was really able to remember, this is such a gift. It's like, when you're sitting with Kambo, and Kambo is such a great way to cleanse and clear. And my good friend Caitlin actually serves Kambo, and so she's taught me some things, and I would love to serve Kambo eventually. But her and I talk about how it's always important to purge in combo. That's like part of the medicine. And it's such a gift to be able to move the energy that way. Even though some people are so scared, it's just so relieving and so powerful to be able to remove it that way. So I had a deep purge. And when I was purging, I was on my hands and knees, and it was really important for me to move. That's why I'm so grateful for the one-on-one. Going back to this is because I was really able to move in a sensual way that felt free. And I needed to do that. Like I really needed to do that. And you can do this in any kind of embodiment practice, right? But I just wanted to deepen myself in this way. So I purged, and then I felt feathers like seraphim were showing up, right? Um, and seraphim, for those who don't know, the correct or one of the translations of angels in the Bible are seraphim, which are like those angels that the way that they look, they have like one eye in the middle, and then there's like feathers all around them. Really interesting. You should look it up, see what you think about them. So they just kept showing up on my back, especially, and just like eagle wings and condor wings, like just so many feathers. And I realized that the depths of what I'm purging was the depths for my like generational trauma, like generational disconnection from our sensuality. And I purged once, and then there was one other time when I was like, okay, it's coming. It took a second to get there because I was like, oh, this is deep. Like it was deep. It was like coming from my womb. And I knew it was generational because there was so much support on my back. And if you learn about the energetics, I teach this in Sacred Rebels, of like even the energy of our back versus our front, and our lower chakras versus our upper chakras. Our back and our lower chakras are directly related to our lineage, directly related to our generational ancestors. And so the room was full of my ancestors, just full of them, full of the facilitators' ancestors as well. It was a full house, even though it was just the three of us. And I really felt the support of that. And I really felt this remembrance and knowing that I get to move my body. I get to show up in the sensual spaces of me as a female for me and for no one else, literally no one else. And as I've been teaching this specifically in Simply Sensual, I have an incredible Simply Sensual sexuality course. I teach this a lot in Sacred Rebels. We're going to teach a lot about this in Costa Rica when we go in a couple weeks for my feminine embodiment, elemental embodiment retreat. And I really feel like the reclamation of our sensuality is a huge essential piece to grounding into our bodies. So we go to the spiritual to heal, or to awaken, or to celebrate, or to connect to ourselves. Or, we're going to these spiritual places to really find reclamation of who we are, to really embody, this is who I am, and I get to be this person. And because I'm this person, I am connected deeply to the divine, right? And we, especially now more than ever, women and men, get to reclaim what sexuality means to us for ourselves, for no one else, literally for no one else, not our partner, not somebody who sees us in the grocery store, not anyone but ourselves. And the deepening of me being able to release more of that. And this was all about releasing past doubts, past rewirings, past conditionings, of anything that would keep me from not feeling safe to be in my body. So this is a continuation of like the pendulum of really integrating all the 5D into the 3D. And it was stunning. And for the most of the rest of the night, I was able to just really move on my hands and knees and get up and dance primally, and like squatting down and dancing and just like reclaiming what it meant to be seen in my movement. And it really helped me anchor in this idea of movement, this idea of embodiment, and how essential embodiment is, especially if we're doing spiritual work, how essential it is, and how it's such an important piece if we're really going to integrate. And like I said, I'll say it over and over again. I know this. I teach people this. It's a deep piece of Medicina. Movement is a deep piece. Somatics, yoga, but even deeper than that, it's the sensuality of our movements. It's the sensuality of our breaths. It's deepening the relationship that we have with ourselves so that we can really stand in truth for ourselves, carry ourselves for ourselves. It's a deep reclamation of the shadow. It's the deep reclamation of the shadow of the sexuality. So everything has a shadow, everything has a yin and a yang. And I think oftentimes we push away the shadow of like our deep primal sexuality, like our Lilith energy, that like dark feminine, right? We push it away. And by pushing it away, just like anything, it actually attracts more of it. It's like, I don't want to see this. I'm going to put it in a box. And then how is it actually supposed to be healthily expressed if it's not seen that way? And then if it's not expressed, what couple of years down the road, it hasn't been expressed and it wants to be expressed in maybe an unhealthy way or an imbalanced way. So to honor the dark and the light sexual energy, it really has to do with you being able to embody both. And by making space in your life to express for yourself. And this actually has a lot to do with sacred rage. There were a couple moments this last weekend that were so beautiful that there was a couple women that were really just feeling mad at themselves. And obviously, we don't do a lot of sacred rage in specific ceremonies. In other ones, we do. But I was able to take them out to the land. And we stood in front of a tree to give it to the tree and just allowed them to scream. And both of these experiences, both of these women had never screamed before, like actually raged. And that's truly that rage, that primalness comes from our sacral, comes from our identity center. It comes from things that we've been hiding and pushing down because we're afraid to express them because somewhere someone told us that our sexuality is someone else's. So it's just a deeper connection to ourselves. And it was just so beautiful for me to remember and reclaim that and continue the reclamation. And then, of course, after ceremony, after everything's packed up and cleaned up, after all the offerings have been given to the land, after you've gotten your rest and nourished your body and come back to the real life, then what happens then? How have you integrated? How have I integrated? And I just went to the gym this morning and was just like lifting weights and just feeling so grateful for the idea that I truly have the sovereignty and the accountability to choose to be in this body every day, to choose to better this body. Because no matter how many cups of ayahuasca you drink, no matter how much breath work you do, nothing will physically move your body but you. It is that deep devotion. Spirituality is stunning. It's beautiful. Let's reconnect ourselves. Let's open our hearts. Let's clearly speak our truths. But if we're not actively moving our bodies and integrating what we've experienced in the spiritual realms, none of it will even actually crystallize in the real world. And that's the whole point of what we're doing, because we're not in the 5D. That's not, I mean, maybe the frequency of the world is totally changing. We're totally elevating, but are we embodied to the point where we can really show up for ourselves? That is the point. And that is what I'm really deeply integrating. And that takes, for me, this is what it takes. Deeply fueling my body with meat protein. I'm talking red meat. I'm talking white meat. I'm talking like deeply grounding myself in that. And then it also requires of me to just be really mindful, cycle syncing. And with the cycle syncing, what movement am I doing? I'm ovulating right now. If you couldn't tell, I'm like so full of energy. I feel so aligned. And so I'm lifting super heavy right now. Lifting weights is so important, especially as women. I mean, I'm 36. So as I get older, my collagen decreases, so they say. And so if I can continue to lift my weights it is going to continue to not only help my hormones, balancing them, releasing different hormones, but also help remember why I'm doing all this. Why am I doing all this? To better my life, to better serve my community, to hold my vessel so strong so that I can serve. And I see this in so many different attitudes. I saw this in my nursing degree. I saw this in my nursing career where women were holding so much, as nurses were holding so much, that they didn't give themselves time to really take time for themselves. And that is so important. And my prayer is that we can continue to really honor and realize and remember how to pull and hold the spiritual and the physical. And I really hope that you feel like you can find that in this community. I want to continually remind you to come back home to yourself. And that doesn't just mean coming home to your spiritual connection. It means coming home to your vessel. And that requires devotion. It does. It requires devotion. And as annoying as that is, and we want to kick and stream and we want things to be easy, we want to do things once and then it's just fine. That's not the point of it, of us being here. It's just not. This is not the life for that. Maybe someday we'll come back and we'll like come back as a plant or a tree, or we'll ascend to the Palladians and we'll be aliens, and maybe things will be easier that way. But a big piece of why we're here, I believe, is to continually better ourselves and continually remind ourselves. And as annoying as it is, the more devotion we have to ourselves, the more life is easier. Things come more easy because our frequency is more clear, because we are more aligned, because we can hold things. We can show up for our families. We can go on those hikes. We can really cultivate that chi energy within us. And I'm not trying to share or say, do this and this and this, A, B, and C, D, right? Mostly what I want to really crystallize in this episode is that devotion to self requires a devotion to all chakras, a devotion to our somatics, our movement, our bodies. No one's going to force you to take the pills. No one's going to force you to lift the weights. That is up to you. As well as no one's going to force you to drink ayahuasca. No one's going to force you to start meditating. No one's going to force you to start journaling, right? There are levels and different things of what we can do to really continue to keep our vessel clear, to be our most highest integral selves. And I just feel so grateful that I can continue to show up in my integral, accountable way, connecting heaven and earth together. That is literally the goal for me this year, is just to continue to really deepen that. And I really feel it's so beautiful that I was able to have such a deep experience right before Costa Rica, because Costa Rica is coming up soon. You guys, Costa Rica is May 28th through like June 2nd. Come with me and enjoy. It's the most incredible, luxurious resort. Everything's included in the resort. You just have to get a plane ticket to get there. And there's like a private chartered plane that takes us there. And we're there for 4 days. We're going to go through the elements of our bodies, of our air, our mind, our earth, our body, our air, our mind, our water, our soul, our womb, our fire. And we're just going to take each day and really get into there and really get into ourselves and feel it. And I just feel so grateful for the women that have said yes. There's still spots available. So if you feel like you're wanting a time to really connect with yourself, we're not doing plant medicine there. It has nothing to do with that. It's all about the feminine embodiment within. And I just am so excited to bring these extra teachings really into that space. Costa Rica itself is such deep medicine. The jungle itself is such deep medicine, and it just holds us so beautifully in this resort space. And my dear friend Tracy, she's an incredible photographer. She's coming with me to photograph the event. And it's just going to be so beautiful. This will be the last retreat that you can have an option to be with me in until the fall. And then the fall, the two retreats I have are backpacking or Medicina, which both require a lot as far as physicality and sitting with deep medicine. So if both of those, maybe one of those, are up your alley, then you can wait for those. Or if you're wanting more of like a really deep embodiment, a femininity space with sisters to just really find the sacred rebel within you, then I'd love for you to join me in Costa Rica. And we're not going to be in Costa Rica again until January of 2026. So take what you will, take with you what you will. And I hope that you can, when we say coming back to the wild within you, I hope that that really rings true. I really hope you can open your hips and you can look at yourself naked and you can look at your labia in the mirror and you can get on your hands and knees and shake and release your hips and shake your head and moan and sound and connect your voice with your yoni. I really hope you can. People love to make fun of the things that actually make the most change, that actually change you on a cellular level. And I'm telling you, the feminine embodiment within us will unlock the way to ground into ourselves, to really come home to ourselves. It is such an essential piece. And I'm just so grateful that I got to deepen that with this private sit. It was so deep, so beautiful. And I just feel so grateful. So now I'm going to set up my altar. I'm going to refresh it. I'm going to continue to clean my house. If you're listening, I'm going to sing a song for you guys. I sing a lot. I don't share about it a lot because I don't know. It's just an edge for me that I haven't gone to yet. But this is a song that I wrote while I was in my Rose Dieta. And it's called Rosa. And it's all about opening to the sweetness of life. And if you're feeling closed, if you're feeling confused, if you're feeling, like maybe you've lost it or you're in a really stressful time of your life, I hope that you can connect with this song and just remember that you have everything within you to bloom and that you are safe enough to do so. So I hope you love it. Rosa, Rosa, Rosa. Rosa, Rosa. Rosa, Rosa. My tears no longer hiding from joy. Streaming streams of sweetness, opening my petals within to me. Because of you, Rosa, Rosa, Abuelita Rosa. My heart beats slows and my heart space grows because of you, Rosa, Rosa, Abuelita Rosa. My nervous system settles in your petals as my heart space opens up my vessel to me because of you, Rosa, Rosa, Abuelita Rosa. Rosara abierta, Rosara abierta, Rosara abierta, Rosara abierta. Medicina, Rosalita, Medicina, Rosalita. Medicina, Rosalita. Rosa, 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 Medicina, Rosa. Rosa, 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 Abuelita Rosa. Rosa, Rosa, Rosa. Open your heart to your Rosa. Just call me Taylor Swift. Thank you very much. May you find the sweetness of your life always, remembering that if you soften, if you slow down, maybe smile even, your petals will open to the sweetness of life. Love you so much. Have a beautiful weekend. And remember that you're always enough and never too much. You are rare, a diamond. There is no one like you. I love you so much, and I'll see you next week.